Bird of Paradise is a significant modernist paradigm. Well, it's one of these pre-code romance films set on an exotic island in the deep Pacific Ocean. An American sailor falls in love with a native woman, which not a huge amount of people approve of, specifically the volcano god, which requires this young woman as a sacrifice. Bird of Paradise began as a play, first shown in 1912, written by one Richard Walton Tully. The production was a hit, owing to its simulations of the exotic and the erotic. And so eventually the time came for a Hollywood film adaptation, and legendary director King Vidor was hired to helm the project. Joel McCrea stars as the male protagonist Johnny Baker, but it is Dolores Del Rio portraying Luana, which personifies the highest erotic ideal, at least according to Orson Welles, so some film blog alleges. This being pre-code, she is briefly naked during one particularly saucy swimming sequence, which was considered completely scandalous at this time. Actually, filmsite.org makes a claim that this film was unseen for years as a result of its depiction of nudity. In the original play, the male protagonist is a doctor who gives his life trying to cure the local natives of leprosy. In this film, he is a randy sailor. King Vidor co-produced this film with David Selznick, that same Selznick who produced Gone with the Wind 7 years later. Filming took place in Hawaii, allegedly costing over $1 million according to one source, where the film's native tribe dance sequences were shot in Hollywood and choreographed by the uncredited Busby Berkeley, interestingly enough. I have read that the native huts for this set were utilised for next year for the production of King Kong. I could believe that. One of the most fascinating claims that Bird of Paradise holds in film history is that it was one of the very first sound pictures to utilise a fully symphonic score from start to finish, courtesy of that most legendary composer, Max Steiner. Prior to this, or at least I have read, it was considered a significant problem for producers to try and avoid any suggestion of musical background unless there was an on-screen justification for it, what we might call diegetic music. Bird of Paradise is, at least claimed to be, the first film, non-musical certainly, which employed a consistent non-diegetic symphonic score from beginning to end. This is quite a varied score as well, from mellow tropical guitars to romantic strings and fierce primal percussion. It is extremely tantalizing to one's sonic palate. But in spite of all this ambition, it has been reported that Bird of Paradise was not a box office success in spite of its apparent notoriety. This film could be considered a major prototype for Hollywood's exotic adventure films. It was a contemporary of Murnau and Flaherty's Taboo, A Story of the South Seas, and the earlier Johnny Weissmuller Tarzan films, which were also controversial for nudity at this time. And it directly preceded and allegedly aided the production of King Kong itself. A 1988 book on King Vidor by Raymond Dergnat and Scott Simon contains this quote: Vidor's fascination with conflicts of cultures, languages, and races is pared down to civilization versus sexuality. It's a brilliant thought. See, I wasn't even joking when I referred to this film as a modernist paradigm. It portrays an allegedly superior peoples interfering with the allegedly primitive. There is a sincere beauty and passion that this film presents as unique to the natives, not unlike how one might portray happy, childlike, yet unconsidered behaviour, in contrast to a jaded, yet presumably wiser, adulthood. In this respect, it becomes a prototype for those glorious cannibal films. The two extremes of human organizational capacity, civilized and allegedly uncivilized in this case, are presented as philosophical pulp. The urban expatriates search for a greater understanding of life and the species, generally speaking, be it love in this film or scientific research in a later cannibal film, let's say. Their meeting becomes a morbid testament to the futility of human interaction, and perhaps even just anthropological development in general. There has also been material written, apparently in this 1988 book on Vidor, about the film's sardonic take on the idea of miscegnation. From what I can understand, the book does not claim that the film is outright against miscegnation, but it rather instead is aware of the doomed nature of such relationships, at least as it was in 1930s American society, let's say. Who can say for sure? Bird of Paradise is the old world patriarchy on proudest display. 2021 audiences would likely be appalled at this film, as apparently many were in 1932. It is extremely supremacist, which is something those later cannibal films do not even necessarily espouse. So wait, you may be thinking, what do I actually think of this film? In addition to being one of the most fascinating nexus points in Hollywood's history and film history in general, Bird of Paradise acts as a beautifully morbid prototype of the later Clash of Civilization exploitation films of the later 20th century. I've claimed that certain films I would love to watch sick in bed, and this has to be one of those, for better or for worse. Would I ever watch it with anyone else? I probably would not. Is the only reason I'd watch it by myself some sort of sly reference to its eroticism? No, not even that. I was born in 1996. TV was more risque at that time than Bird of Paradise could ever dream of being. The film just takes place in such a particular narrow space, released to audiences whose worldview was ordered, rigid, and extremely one-note. This is like watching a propaganda film, a private piece of propaganda about the superiority of its society and origin, a piece of spectacle fetishizing the other, all from the comfort of your local movie theatre, or in the 21st century, in the comfort of your own home. Bird of Paradise is a beastly film, but it contains an ugly beauty as well. I appreciate its existence if you couldn't already tell. I don't feel fantastic about championing this nasty, smutty picture, but I can't deny how I feel. That would be insincere. Have a wonderful day, my beautiful friends.